in the late 50s, early 60s, when you were still young, you were in your late teens, in the very early 60s, was crime starting to increase, or did that come later in Compton?
It came, unfortunately, it started like in the mid '60s after the Watts Riot. That's when, before the Watts Riot, there wasn't that much crime in Compton. Even in the black area, there wasn't that much crime. What happened after '65, it was like the gates of hell opened up. Because all of a sudden, now you had the Rumford Fair Housing Act that was passed in '64. Now, Rumford was the first black politician that was in California. Well, he passed a law that eliminated covenants. Now, that had a pro and a negative reaction. Because what happened was that people from Watts, from Willowbrook, from Athens Park and South Central, they came pouring into Compton. And the whites, I mean, when this was like an onslaught. And when that happened, the whites bailed out. I mean, they were leaving the doors open. They were getting out of there so fast.
And this time, it's not middle-class blacks moving in.
No, this was Watts. This was project people. This was, people that I could acclimate myself to because I grew up with them. But most whites couldn't. They were terrified. These kids were fighting. They went to Gompers. They went, to junior high, and fighting for them was just fighting, man. You fight. Well, these white kids, they weren't into that kind of stuff. And when blacks started going to white schools, they started fighting, and these kids got terrified.
And I guess the parents took them out.
Oh,
right?
Exactly, exactly.
So even though the covenants were considered illegal, they both had a positive and negative result, I guess.
If you look at it from a black point of view, you're saying that it was unconstitutional and racial. Okay? If you look at it from a white point of view, you're saying, well, we didn't have to put up with a gangland attitude and culture that we weren't used to. So it's two sides. It just depends on how you want to look at it.
So when we get into the early 60s, you write in the book that the part of Compton, I'm not sure if you're talking about your neighborhood of Compton or all of Compton, is now 40% black in '63.
That was the whole.
The whole of Compton.
All of Compton, yeah. Yeah, they jumped. It was like the leapfrog. Every time a neighborhood got one black moved in, and then he had like a Saturday. They ate gospel bird and they had the family over. Well, all the other whites would see that. They would put their for sale signs up, or if you parked the car on the lawn, they saw that they panicked.
So this is what I guess a lot of historians and sociologists call white flight.
Yeah, and then you also have your realtors that played a major part of this thing. I didn't even know at the time, we were young, but myself, Rex, Victor Murphy, O'Neill, and Joe Jones, they gave us, one time this white guy came down in our neighborhood, and he came with a truck, and he gave us pamphlets, flyers, and he gave us, I forgot how much it was, I think it was like $1 or something like that. And he told us to go into the white neighborhood, which was not that far away from us, and put the flyers up on the windshields, where the windshield wipers would, to put the flyers on all the cars around the street. I wouldn't even pay attention to what the flyer was, but it was actually telling the whites to get the hell out.
Is that right?
Yeah. We didn't even know what we were doing. We were just kids, We figured, $1, man, We had no idea. Yeah, it was me, Victor Murphy, O'Neill Bloomington, Rex Pope, and Bozo Jackson.
Putting flyers on all these cars.
Yeah, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
So you guys walked over to the east side of Compton or something?
Right, we walked over to two neighborhoods over. That's where the white neighborhood was.
So what year are we talking about? Early 60s, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so, but even though Compton is 40% black in '63, it still was a relatively decent city. It hadn't even got to the point where it becomes the most violent area.
No, it was the crime had gone up, but not significantly. It hadn't gone up like it hadn't skyrocketed like a stratosphere. It was it was still relatively a nice area to live.
Now I wanted to ask you about Dr. Ross Miller Jr. that moved into Compton. and had to deal with a little bit of racial conflict.
He was the first black family that moved into what they call Compton Hollywood. It was Poinsettia, Sloan, Mayo, and I think those were the 3 streets. Burris. Those 4 streets had $1 million homes. That's where all the guys that owned the dealerships in Compton, like Barrett, Barnett, and Mohart, and Clark, all those families lived in that area. So Ross Miller was a doctor. Okay, he was a doctor, and he moved his family. I think it was Poinsettia. He moved his family in there. I'm not sure, but it was Compton Hollywood. Those 4 blocks that were very exclusive. Only the rich white people lived there, and so even poor white people couldn't go there. So what happened? He bought a home there. He was a doctor, for God's sakes, and they put a big cross that night. They burned a cross in his lawn, and on fire. So the very next day, they put Gene Poole and Marjorie Button, 2 officers, to guard Ross Miller's home. Gene Poole and Marjorie Button were assigned to make sure that they didn't put any more crosses and burn the house down.
Thanks for watching StreetTV.net. If you're not subscribed, please hit that button below and click the bell to receive alerts and notifications. Feel free to comment below so you can give us your feedback, and be sure to watch the 2 related episodes to the right. If you want to support this platform or follow us on social media, visit the links in the description, and thanks for watching StreetTV.net.